Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt lost, like you're walking through life but have no idea where you're going? You're pushing, you're striving, but it feels like nothing is working. You pray, you try, and still, it feels like you're standing still. But let me tell you something. God is leading you. Even when you can't see it, even when you don't understand it, even when it feels like nothing is happening, He is guiding you toward your purpose. Life isn't about instant results. It's not about waking up one day and having everything figured out. No, life is a journey of faith, obedience, and trust. It's about following God's plan even when it doesn't make sense. Too often we want to take control. We want to know all the answers before we take the first step. But God doesn't work that way. He leads you step by step. And if you're feeling lost, if you're feeling discouraged, I want you to listen closely, because this message is for you. Sometimes you pray, you work, you push, and you wait, but nothing seems to happen. You look around and wonder, why am I still stuck here? Why am I still in this place? Why is my breakthrough taking so long? It's frustrating, isn't it? To feel like you're putting in the effort, to feel like you're doing everything right, and yet it seems like God is silent. But let me tell you something right now. God's silence does not mean His absence. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean He's not working. Think about a seed. You plant it deep into the soil. You cover it up. You water it. And then what? Nothing. At least that's what it looks like. Days pass, weeks pass, maybe even months, and there's no sign of life. But what you don't see is that beneath the soil, something powerful is happening. That seed is breaking open. Roots are growing. Foundation is being built. And at just the right time, when it's strong enough, when it's ready, it pushes through the ground and it begins to grow. That's what God is doing with you. You see, delay is not denial. Just because you're waiting doesn't mean God has forgotten about you. Just because things aren't happening on your timeline doesn't mean they're not happening at all. God is working behind the scenes. He's setting things up. He's putting the right people in place. He's making sure that when He does open that door, you'll be ready to walk through it. But here's the problem. Most people don't make it to the breakthrough. They give up in the waiting season. They lose faith before the miracle comes. They get tired, discouraged, and they walk away, not realizing that they were just one step away from everything they were praying for. That's why you have to stay strong. That's why you have to keep believing, keep pushing, keep trusting, even when it doesn't make sense. Because your delays are not God saying no. They are God saying, not yet. They are God saying, I'm still preparing you. They are God saying, I have something so much bigger, but I need you to trust me. Look at Joseph. He had a dream that one day he would be a ruler, that one day he would be in a position of power. But before that dream became reality, his life fell apart. His own brothers betrayed him. They threw him into a pit, sold him into slavery, and left him for dead. And even when he tried to do the right thing, even when he remained faithful, he was falsely accused and thrown into prison. He was years of waiting, years of struggle. But through it all, God was working. Through it all, God was preparing him. And when the time was right, when everything was in place, Joseph was elevated to a position higher than he could have ever imagined. Now, what if Joseph had given up? What if he had decided that the waiting was too much, that the suffering was too great? What if he had turned his back on God because things didn't happen the way he expected? He would have missed the very thing that God had promised him. And that's what too many people do. They walk away too soon. They stop trusting too soon. They get tired of waiting and they settle for less. But you can't settle. You can't let frustration make you abandon what God has promised you. Your delays are not wasted time. They are your training ground. They are your preparation. Because listen, if you walked into your purpose too soon, you wouldn't be ready for it. If you received your blessing too soon, you wouldn't know how to handle it. So God holds you back, not to punish you, but to prepare you. He lets you go through the fire, not to destroy you, but to refine you. And I know it's hard. I know waiting is painful. I know it's discouraging when you feel like everyone else is moving forward and you're stuck in the same place. But let me tell you something. Your journey is not their journey. Your story is not their story. And what God has for you is so much bigger than what you could ever imagine. But you have to trust Him. You have to believe that He knows what He's doing, even when you don't understand. The enemy wants you to quit. He wants you to believe that nothing will ever change. He wants you to give up on your dreams, to give up on your faith, to give up on yourself. because he knows that if you just keep going, if you just keep pushing, if you just keep trusting, you're going to walk into something so powerful, so life-changing, that he won't be able to stop you. So don't you dare give up now. Don't you dare let doubt win. Don't you dare let the waiting break you, because you are closer than you think. You are stronger than you know, and God is not finished with you yet. He is still writing your story. He is still moving things into place. And when the time is right, when you are ready, when everything is lined up just as it should be, he will open that door, and nothing and no one will be able to close it. Life will test you, life will push you, life will take you through storms that feel like they'll never end. And in those moments, when everything seems to be falling apart, when you don't see a way out, when you don't understand why, those are the moments that define who you are. Those are the moments where faith is tested, where patience is tested, where your character is tested. See, everybody wants the blessing, but nobody wants the process. Everybody wants the success, but nobody wants to go through what it takes to get there. And that's why most people give up. That's why most people settle for less, because the waiting is uncomfortable. The struggle is painful. The setbacks make you question whether it's even worth it. But let me tell you something. You can't rush God. You can't force his timing. What he has for you is too great, too powerful, too meaningful to be given to you before you're ready. You ever notice how God will let you go through situations that feel impossible? How he will let you struggle longer than you thought you could handle? That's because he's stretching you. He's molding you. He's preparing you for what's coming next. Because the weight of your calling, the weight of your purpose, the weight of the life that God has for you, it's heavy. And if he gave it to you right now, if he handed it to you before you were prepared, it would crush you. Think about David. Before he ever became king, he was just a shepherd. He was overlooked. He was forgotten. And even after he was anointed, even after he was chosen by God, he didn't step into his destiny right away. No, he had to go through the process. He had to fight battles. He had to run for his life. He had to face opposition. He had to wait. But every moment, every hardship, every trial, it was preparing him. It was shaping him into the leader he was called to be. That's what God is doing in your life right now. You may not see it, you may not understand it, but trust me, nothing is wasted. Nothing is random. Everything you're facing is part of the preparation. Every delay, every disappointment, every no, every closed door, every time you felt like giving up but kept going anyway. God sees it all, and he's using it to shape you. He's using it to build you. He's using it to make sure that when he does take you to that next level, you'll be able to handle it. But here's the problem. Most people resist the process. Most people get tired of waiting and try to force things to happen on their own. And when they do that, they end up walking into something they're not ready for. They end up settling for something less than what God had planned for them. Look at Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a child. He told them that he would give them a son. But when years passed and nothing happened, they got impatient. They decided to take matters into their own hands. And because they didn't trust God's timing, because they tried to rush the process, they created a situation that brought pain, confusion, and struggle into their lives. How many times have we done that? How many times have we made the mistake of thinking God was taking too long? How many times have we tried to rush into a relationship that wasn't meant for us, a job that wasn't right for us, an opportunity that we weren't ready for? And every time we ended up regretting it. We ended up realizing that if we had just waited, if we had just trusted God, things would have turned out so much better. You see, when you step outside of God's timing, you also step outside of his protection. When you try to force things, you end up carrying burdens you were never meant to carry. You end up fighting battles you were never meant to fight. And you end up struggling with things that were never meant to be part of your journey. That's why you have to learn how to surrender. You have to learn how to be still. You have to learn how to trust that even when things don't make sense, even when nothing is happening, even when it feels like God is silent, he is still in control. Because listen, just because things aren't happening the way you want them to, doesn't mean they're not happening at all. Just because you don't see the full picture yet, doesn't mean God isn't working behind the scenes. He's putting things in place. He's moving the right people into position. He's setting up opportunities that you don't even know about. But if you quit now, if you give up before the breakthrough, if you stop trusting because things didn't happen fast enough, you'll miss what he has for you. And you don't want to miss it. You don't want to look back and realize that you walked away from something great because you were too impatient to wait. You don't want to look back and realize that you settled for less because you didn't trust God to bring you more. So I'm telling you right now, stop worrying about the timeline. Stop stressing about how long it's taking. Stop looking around at other people and wondering why they seem to be moving forward while you feel stuck. Your journey is not their journey. Your path is not their path. And what God has for you is so much greater than anything you could ever imagine. But you have to trust Him. You have to be willing to wait. You have to be willing to let go of your own plans, your own timeline, and surrender to His. Because when you do that, when you stop fighting against the process and start embracing it, you'll see that everything you went through, everything you struggled with, every tear, every disappointment, it was all leading you to something greater, something bigger, something that only God could have orchestrated. And when that moment comes, when you finally step into what He has for you, when you look back and see how He was working all along, you'll realize that every moment of waiting, every moment of struggle, every moment of doubt, it was worth it. It was necessary because it made you into the person you were always meant to be. Pain is one of the greatest teachers in life. It humbles you, it strengthens you, and if you let it, it will refine you into something greater than you ever imagined. But most people don't see pain that way. Most people try to run from it, try to numb it, try to push it away. They get bitter, they get angry, they ask, why me? Why is this happening to me? But the truth is, pain isn't your enemy, it's your preparation. It's the fire that burns away what's weak in you so that only the strong remains. When you look at people who have achieved great things in life, people who walk with confidence, people who inspire, people who carry wisdom and strength, you think they got there easily? You think they woke up one day and became that person? No. They were forged in the fire. They were shaped by struggle. They were refined through the pain they endured. Because pain has a way of showing you what you're made of. Pain has a way of stripping away everything you thought you needed so that you can see what really matters. Look at Joseph, sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused, thrown into prison for years for something he didn't even do. He could have given up. He could have let bitterness consume him. He could have said, God, this isn't fair. But he didn't. He trusted the process. He trusted that the pain he was going through had a purpose. And because of that, God raised him up to a position of power, not just for himself, but so he could save an entire nation. See, when you go through pain, it's not just about you. It's about who you're going to help because of what you've been through. It's about the wisdom you're going to carry, the strength you're going to develop, the faith you're going to have. Because when you've walked through the fire and survived, you don't doubt God the way you used to. When you've been through hell and made it out, you don't fear struggle the way you used to. And that's why God allows the pain, because He's preparing you for something greater. But most people don't see it that way. Most people get stuck in their pain. They let it define them. They let it break them. They let it turn them into someone they were never meant to be. They become angry. They become resentful. They stop believing. They stop trusting. And the worst part, they stop moving forward. They let the pain keep them trapped in the past. That's what the enemy wants. The enemy wants you to believe that the pain you're going through is pointless. He wants you to think that your suffering has no meaning. He wants you to believe that God has abandoned you. Because if he can get you to believe that, he can get you to quit. He can get you to settle. He can get you to walk away from the very thing that God is using to prepare you for your destiny. But you have to shift your perspective. You have to stop seeing pain as a punishment and start seeing it as preparation. You have to stop seeing obstacles as roadblocks and start seeing them as stepping stones. You have to stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? How is this making me stronger? How is this shaping me into the person I need to be for where God is taking me? Because the truth is, pain is never wasted. Every tear you've cried, every struggle you faced, every heartbreak, every disappointment, it's all part of the process. It's all shaping you. It's all building something in you that you're going to need for the next season of your life. Think about a diamond. Before it becomes something beautiful, before it shines, it has to go through extreme pressure. It has to be cut, it has to be refined. Without that process, it's just a rock. It has no value, it has no purpose. But when it's been through the fire, when it's been shaped, when it's been refined, it becomes something precious, it becomes something valuable. And that's exactly what pain does to you. The problem is, most people want the diamond without the process. They want the reward without the struggle. They want the success without the sacrifice. But it doesn't work that way. You can't become strong without first being broken. You can't develop faith without first being tested. You can't carry wisdom without first experiencing failure. So if you're going through pain right now, if you feel like life is breaking you, if you feel like you're being stretched beyond what you can handle, I need you to hold on. I need you to trust that this isn't the end of your story. I need you to believe that what you're going through is not going to destroy you. It's going to develop you. Because one day, you're going to look back and see that every tear, every hardship, every moment of struggle was necessary. One day, you're going to see that the very thing that tried to break you was actually the thing that built you. One day, you're going to realize that the pain wasn't a sign that God had forgotten you. It was a sign that he was preparing you for something greater than you ever imagined. So don't give up. Don't let the pain define you. Don't let the struggle break you. Keep going. Keep trusting. Keep believing. Because the process may be painful, but the purpose behind it is greater than anything you could ever imagine. There comes a time in life when you have to surrender. Not to the world, not to the struggle, but to God. Because no matter how much you fight, no matter how much you push, no matter how much you try to control everything, you are not in control. And that's a hard truth for a lot of people to accept. Because we like to think we have it all figured out. We like to believe that if we just work harder, if we just try more, if we just push a little further, then everything will fall into place. But life doesn't work that way. Life will humble you. Life will bring you to your knees. Life will show you over and over again that you are not the one calling the shots. And that's why you have to let go. You have to stop fighting against God's plan. Stop resisting what he's trying to do in your life. Stop trying to force things that were never meant for you. Stop trying to open doors that were never meant to be opened. Because all you're doing is exhausting yourself. All you're doing is making the process harder than it needs to be. Look back at your life. Look at all the things you thought you wanted. All the plans you made. All the times you told yourself, this has to work out, but it didn't. And in the moment you were frustrated, you were disappointed, maybe even angry. But now you see why it didn't work out. Now you understand that God was protecting you. Now you realize that what you thought you needed would have destroyed you. That's why trust is so important, because there are going to be moments when you don't understand what God is doing. Moments when you feel like he's taking too long. Moments when you question if he even hears you. And in those moments, you have a choice. You can stress yourself out, trying to control what's beyond your control, or you can surrender. You can let go and say, God, I don't know what you're doing, but I trust you. I don't understand this season, but I know you have a purpose for it. I don't see the full picture, but I know you do. So I'm going to stop fighting, I'm going to stop worrying, I'm going to stop doubting, and I'm going to let you take over. That's not easy, because we live in a world that tells us we have to make things happen for ourselves. We live in a society that glorifies hustle, that glorifies striving, that glorifies control. But what they don't tell you is that there's a peace that comes with surrender. There's a strength in letting go. There's power in saying, God, I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to see every step of the journey. I don't have to know how it all plays out. I just have to trust you. Think about Peter when he was in the boat. The storm was raging, the waves were crashing, the wind was howling, and Jesus told him to step out onto the water. Now, Peter could have stayed in the boat. He could have said, this doesn't make sense. I don't know how this is going to work. But he didn't. He stepped out. He walked on the water. Not because he had control, but because he had trust. The moment he took his eyes off Jesus, the moment he let fear take over, he started to sink. And that's exactly what happens in our lives. The moment we stop trusting, the moment we let fear take over, we start to sink. We start to drown in our own doubts, our own anxieties, our own need for control. But here's the thing, God never lets you sink. Even when Peter started going under, Jesus reached out his hand and pulled him up. Because God never leaves you, even when you're struggling, even when you're doubting, even when you feel like you're drowning. He is right there. He's just waiting for you to stop trying to do it all on your own. And that's the problem with so many people. They are drowning in their own strength. They are exhausted because they refuse to surrender. They are struggling because they won't let go. But there is freedom in surrender. There is peace in saying, God, I don't have to carry this anymore. I don't have to have it all figured out. I don't have to fight every battle. I trust you. Because here's the truth. You were never meant to carry it all. You were never meant to control everything. You were never meant to handle life's burdens on your own. That's why so many people are burnt out. That's why so many people are stressed out. That's why so many people are constantly anxious. Because they are trying to do a job that was never meant for them. So what do? You surrender. You pray, you release. You stop trying to force things that are beyond your control. You stop trying to manipulate outcomes. You stop trying to figure everything out. And you trust. You wake up every day and say, God, I don't know what today holds, but I know you hold it. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I know you have a plan. And that's enough for me. Because when you trust God, you don't have to worry. When you trust God, you don't have to fear. When you trust God, you can finally breathe, because no matter what happens, you know that He's in control. No matter what comes your way, you know that He's already gone before you. And no matter what storms you face, you know that you're never facing them alone. God is leading you to your purpose. Through the delays, through the closed doors, through the struggles, and through the unknown, He is guiding your steps. You may not always understand it. You may not always like it, but one day you will look back and realize that every moment, every challenge, every twist and turn, it was all leading you exactly where you were meant to be.